Well, welcome everybody to the Leaders in Housing Counseling call, and we are on part 2 of the client management systems. I suspect we may have some more of these as the next couple months go on, but this has been a hot topic in our field, and we have a lot of issues to deal with, and today I hope we'll move forward on a few of them. We'll also touch on the federal funding situation and the shutdown, and we're launching a survey about the impact of the shutdown, which we hope all of you will participate in. We are going to spend the bulk of the call on the client management systems, and we've got Joe Weisbord from Fannie Mae to talk about the latest on HCO and Fannie Mae's next steps on the CMS issues. We're going to have Bruce Marks on from NACA about their client management system and a presentation they're going to do, a webinar they're going to do next week that will give people an in-depth demonstration. And we're going to spend a fair amount of the call on the client management system that Launchpad, that Housing Partnership Network and others have put into place, and we'll spend some time on that one. And then we're going to talk briefly about the NHRC Facebook page. We're doing a lot of work, as you know, in social media, and this is going to be a piece of that strategy, so you'll help us with that as well, and we hope that it'll be helpful to your organization also. We'll have a quick talk on NHRC membership, and then the call next week, which in February, which will feature another CMS system as well as some advocacy work on fair housing issues for veterans and other people. So quickly, because we have a big crowd already on the call, feel free to enter questions as people are talking in the question box. We're going to handle the questions kind of when after each presentation, or if there's a break during the presentation to handle questions. But Melody will walk through the questions as best she can. Knowing there's a lot of people and a lot of issues, we're going to make the call an hour-and-a-half call, and so we're going to go from now until 2:30. So please plan on that, and we'll have time in each section for Q&A. Do the best we can to cover as much as we can. So with that quick note, let's go to the federal funding update, which is a complicated picture. So Melody, you're up.
Thank you, Bruce. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the call. Just very briefly on what's been going on in Washington, in the continued shutdown battle. The House has passed H.R. 648, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2019. This appropriations package is one of many packages that the House has passed since January 3rd to reopen the government. And this appropriations package, like the others, also includes HUD funding. This particular bill is interesting because it has appropriation levels that the House negotiated with the Senate prior to the government shutdown in December. It's broken down to several different divisions, and HUD funding is included in Division F of the bill, which includes housing counseling assistance. And so this bill has a housing counseling assistance at $50 million. So not as low as we were anticipating they would have the funding, but still less than we were hoping. We'll continue working with Congress to find champions, and we're devising strategies to potentially increase this funding level during our fiscal year 2020 appropriation efforts. Thus far, this bill has not been added to the Senate calendar as of today, but we're keeping an eye on the Senate calendar and hoping that they move forward with appropriations. In the meantime, we are scheduling meetings with different members in the House and Senate THUD appropriations subcommittees. Last week, Chairwoman Lowy, a Democrat from New York, of the Appropriations Committee in the House, released the rosters for the different subcommittees, including the THUD subcommittee. And just going through them very briefly, as you can see on the screen, Chairman Price from North Carolina is the chair. We had an amazing conversation with his legislative director, Sean Maxwell, and we have another conversation scheduled tomorrow with one of his subcommittee staff. He is an avid supporter of housing counseling, and we hope that we can work very closely with his office. this year on pushing housing counseling funding. And of course, we want to make the case to members on both sides of the aisle about the value that housing counseling brings both to its clients and communities, things such as positive outcomes, success stories, best practices, and why additional resources are necessary to increase the impact. They're all important things that you in the field bring to our efforts. So if you are from one of the states from the members on the screen, please reach out to me. My email address is on the screen, and we would just like to hear from you on many of these aspects. If you want to be involved in advocating housing counseling with these members, please let me know. We're happy to set up meetings and conversations with your members of Congress in key states and districts to help really push the fight in increasing the funding. And if you want more information, I'm happy to touch base via email after the call. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Bruce.
So I'm going to underscore that. So the people on the THUD Appropriations Committee are the ones who will decide what the next funding level is. And it's widely recognized among the Democrats that HUD Housing Counseling is underfunded. And so we're going to push for a substantial bump up. And it will be decided by the Approps Committee and the THUD Approps Committee. And that's those people that Melody put on the screen right here. So if you are, it doesn't have to be that your office is in their district, just that you serve clients, some of your clients come from their district. If we can get that, we want to talk. You should talk to Melody. You should email Melody right away. If you have a relationship with that representative, that's great. If you don't, not a problem. We are going to make that relationship work with you, but we really need to mobilize people in those districts that are serving in those districts. You don't have to be located in the district, just that you're serving clients in those districts. And Melody will reach out to groups no matter what, but if you can take the lead on this, it will be extremely helpful. So with that plug, everybody, I think you need to mute somebody. We have a cough from somebody there picking up. Okay, so quickly, let's move on, and that's our next item is on the shutdown, and we're putting together a survey to help you respond to all this. Ellie, give us the details.
Hi, everybody. So in response to the government shutdown, we want to determine the impact that the shutdown is having on your organization, on your counselors, on your clients. So we have put together a survey to try to determine that so that we can elevate this to policymakers and to lenders and other supporters of our programs. So we'll be sending out the link to that today. So please respond as quickly as you can. We tried to make the questions quick and easy, so it shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to complete it. Thanks.
Good, and we'll use this to elevate to policymakers. We will use it to elevate to funders too, to let them know what's going on in the field, but also the strains that are putting on your organization as well as your clients. So, and we're trying to do this quickly so that we'll have this information next week. So, quick turnaround. Ellie should post the survey this afternoon after the call. Please make it a priority to get it done, and we will run with it once we get a good copy of it. Thanks everybody on that. So, do we have Joe? No, we don't. Okay, so let's quickly go to Bruce Marks from NACA. So NACA is a storied organization, and Bruce has a long history in the housing counseling field, large events, and doing significant work. Bruce is joining us because they have their own proprietary NACA Links client management system and interested in making it available to groups that are in need. Bruce, are you with us?
Absolutely, Bruce. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me on. So, look, I appreciate the time and I appreciate the work that Bruce and everybody is doing out there on the housing counseling. Just as an aside, uh, people that come through NACA have a Bank of America and City Mortgage. They're doing a forbearance for 3 months for people who are impacted by the shutdown. So if anybody has any questions on that, we can help with that. But both of them are doing that, and I assume they're doing that across the board for everybody on there. As an aside to that, to respond to what you're saying before. Let me be quick, and then so we will get in depth when we do a demo next Tuesday from 3 to 4:30. We've already got 94 people signed up for that. So I just want to give a few of the highlights. But I just want to be clear on one point. We just want to provide this as a benefit for people that need it. We're not interested in a competition, who's better, whatever. I think it's good that there are different CMS systems out there. People have the choice of that. So if we can add value, that's what we're looking to do. NACA Links, we've redeveloped this over 20 years. It's HUD has, with all the reviews, we got 50 offices around the country. We've used it, obviously, for all of our offices. HUD has seen it. It's HUD certified, and all that. And, they've been very impressed with it. And frankly, a lot of people have pushed us to say, would we provide this for other organizations? So that's what we're doing, if we can add value, and I think it does add value. So let me just highlight the major points, and you guys got a big agenda out there, so I don't want to take any more time. It is web-based. It is a secure database hosted in Azure. So, everybody has their own database that would work with it. It is a paperless process. And so every document is either scanned in or uploaded. Most importantly, it has a set workflow. So when we work with, David Young and others who looked and compared our system with others, it's got a really set process that really provides for comprehensive housing counseling. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the NACA process. It's what, HUD has recommended and wants to do, where you do a budget and it's documented. You pull the credit report, you go over the debts, you determine an affordable payment, and you determine whether someone's ready for home ownership. The system automatically can submit the stuff for the 9902 on that. And the other part, which is really interesting with it, is that we set up a separate web file for every client. So that means that you also provide the ability, obviously, for the counselor to do the work, and for the client to see their status and all the items that they need, and their ability to upload their documents, either by the upload from their own system, taking a picture, or faxing it in on that. Obviously, there's a very comprehensive narrative log, and there's a whole lot more to it. So I'm going to end with that. We're providing it for free, so there'll be no cost. So it's a free system, and we would work. And we have the stuff from Fannie Mae, where we would, if someone uses Housing Counselor Online, we would just move that data from there into NACA Links. And as I said, this is all your data stays. It stays secure, and it's your data. And so anybody, please come to the webinar. If you didn't get the invitation, Bruce has that. He'll send that out to everybody. You can send an email to Blake, BLAKE, Willmarth, WILLMARTH @NACA.com, and Blake will follow through with you on that. And come and check it out. Obviously, we're very proud of it, and if we can add value at no cost for you guys, we'll be glad to do that. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate the time, Bruce, and everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. So the webinar will be on Tuesday. We'll push the invite went out yesterday, but we'll push out again this afternoon after this call. It looks like you already have a pretty good turnout of people signed up for it. Hour and a half, so it sounds like it'll be an in-depth piece, and there'll be time for Q&A.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and to ask questions to really dig in on that. Absolutely. Thank you.
So we've got some questions. So we got some questions right now. So Melody, what have we got?
Sure. We just have 4 questions. The first one is how do folks sign up for the demo?
We'll send out the invite again.
Okay. The second question is Citi, and who else beyond Citi is giving a 3-month forbearance, I think is what they were trying to type.
It is, for what we know, Citi and Bank of America. We don't know of any others right now.
Okay. NACA links, this is, the question is, NACA links sounds too good to be true. Are there any considerations that folks should have?
It is the right question. It sounds too good to be true. Check it out. We've done this for a long time. We've been encouraged by, people who've seen it to provide it elsewhere. But, we think that, it really can provide a benefit for people to really do comprehensive counseling, because we know people work hard, and we think it's an effective tool. But come and check it out, and it's the right question to ask. But we worked very hard over 20 years to build.
And I think I'm just, so Bruce, we're always candid about things like this. So the issues that people have raised have been that it's a system that's designed for the NACA system, which is a system that is has its own specific features. So the question is, does it match what the workflow and is of groups here? And I think this demonstration will show. And then I think the other thing is this question about who owns the client data. It's a system that was built for NACA, and the question is, how do we have a world where the client data is exclusively the client data for the counseling agency that's using the system. So those are the 2 issues that I know about.
And just to answer, and I don't want to take up your time on this because there's other things to do. Absolutely, it will be in Azure. Each organization will have their own separate database, and it's absolutely your data on that. So it's absolutely confidential on that piece. And and the only thing that I would add is that you would see the workflow. We think the workflow is not particular to NACA. We think the workflow is what HUD and others and the counseling groups would want to do. So it's a streamlined process, but when David Young and others looked at it, it's the only CMS system that we know of, or he knows of, that has a set workflow. For some people that will work, for others it might not. But come and check that piece out. And we've built it all the wrong way. That's one thing I say is that we've tested it within our, we have 400 to 500 staff. They've beat this system for many years on that way. So that's how it's gotten to where it is. But anyway, thank you.
All right, we certainly have a lot of questions for Ian. I'm going to see if I can.
Let's save that for the webinar. So we're gonna one more question. Okay.
Sure. This question is Link's client compatible with Salesforce?
We don't know. We have not looked at Salesforce on that. It is built in SQL. So the front end is ASP.NET. The back end is SQL on that. And so I don't know. I mean, it's pretty standard. So I would assume that it would be, but I don't know for sure on that.
Yeah, I don't think Salesforce is actually not standard in that sense, I think. But anyways, that's an answerable question. So we need to pivot here. And is Joe Weisbord online? Okay, we do have Joe. Okay, I know you had some technical problems. Thank you for being patient here. So Joe's been a frequent participant on these calls from Fannie Mae, and we really wanted to bring him in because of the what's going on with HCO and plans for the future. So Joe, are you with us?
Yeah, Bruce, can you hear me?
Excellent. We can hear you now.
The more technology we get, the more challenging it is, and that's why we're all here, right? Listen, thanks, Bruce, and I really appreciate the work that NHRC has done to kind of help the industry to address the challenges of technology and client management, and I think we're at an exciting moment with that. Also really appreciative of, I know many of the folks on the call today are HCO users, really appreciative of the patience and the collaboration that all of you have demonstrated as we've been going through this retirement process. Hundreds of HCO users have responded to surveys on the functionality that they wanted to see in a future system, have participated in focus group sessions and demos. A couple dozen, I think, worked on user acceptance testing with Launchpad. So it's really benefited, the future system has really benefited from your input and experience. And I will leave it to Lindsay and the folks from Launchpad to talk about the concept of a system by counselors for counselors, but I think that's a really exciting development, and it's a credit to everyone who's been part of that. I think everyone on the call knows that HCO is being retired. We've first started communicating that about a year ago, and the retirement date, I know there's been some communication. I think we had initially communicated that was March 31st, 2019. That is May 31st, 2019 now. We were able to extend that. And after that date, you will not have access to the system or access to the data, but Fannie Mae is committed to ensuring that every agency that is using the system is able to pull down all of their data in a format that will facilitate either migrating it into Launchpad, which will support, or into another system that you will work with that system provider to migrate your data. And we'll be sending out more detailed instructions on the data migration shortly. The critical thing that all HCO users need to make sure is that your HCO administrator ID is up to date. We've encountered a couple of situations where the individual who had the administrator role had left the organization and they hadn't been replaced. And it will be really critical that your administrator credential is up to date, because only your system administrator will be able to pull down your data, and that's for the security and integrity of the data, both on our side and on the user side. And so if for some reason your administrator is not up to date, and Bruce, I'll circulate the Resource Center 800 number and also our email address that people can reach out to if they have an issue with that. Just a couple comments on Launchpad. When we decided to retire HCO, we really were very concerned that we not leave the users of HCO without an alternative. We did a lot of research and looked at a lot of different options and made the decision to partner with Launchpad in developing a system built on Salesforce that would exceed the functions that HCO provides today. And we also made the commitment to integrating the tools that are available in Desktop Originator and Desktop Underwriter, our automated underwriting platform that is used by lenders, and making those available for the first time to counselors through the system. So in the, and I'll leave to Lindsay to talk about the timing in the release of Launchpad that's available today. You're able to access credit reports and credit data using your existing credit reporting agency relationships through the DU credit module, and in the next release, you'll have full access to the DU risk assessment tool that is the same tool that a lender underwriter uses. So you'll be able to have access to the underwriting messages that that a lender would see that can help you to guide a client around mortgage readiness, around the documentation that they'll need that's very specific to their situation. So we think that's a really powerful tool, and will really facilitate a much greater level of collaboration between counselors and lenders in a way that focuses on the best interest of the client, but also opens new opportunities for fee-for-service relationships and other kinds of partnerships between counselors and lenders. Let me leave it at that, Bruce, and turn this over to Lindsay and the Launchpad folks.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in here for a moment. So just a quick question on transition of client data. So I know there was an offer for people who made an application with Launchpad that had a drop dead date of, I'm not sure if it's December 31st or January 18th, but to pay for that transfer of the data if it's just going to Launchpad. So one question is that still an open offer? And the second one is for groups that are not going to go with Launchpad but go with another agency, how do they handle the transfer of the data?
So Fannie Mae is supporting the data migration from HCO to Launchpad, but we're making the full data of HCO available to all agencies. We're not in any way requiring that users go to Launchpad. That's entirely your choice, and we recognize that different agencies have different needs and criteria. And I think the sessions, Bruce, that you're hosting are really valuable in helping people decide what to do. But we can't support migration to every, all of the 30-some HUD approved, HUD certified platforms that are out there. But the data will be available in a universal format that can be uploaded into any of the systems that are available. And that's, again, the really critical that you have your administrator up to date, because only your administrator will be able to pull that data down and access it through your unique HCO login. And that's, again, for the security of, that's for the security of your client data. Does that answer the question, Bruce?
I think so. I mean, as well as we could do over the phone, given that we're not in the real world situation. Melanie, are there two questions? Good. So 2 questions, and then we're going to jump to Launchpad.
Okay.
Thank you, Bruce. The first question is, will Launchpad also include the FNMA desktop loss mitigation application?
That's a great question. I think that's something we should look at doing down the line. That's not in the current plan, but I think, I would say we would be very open to that if that was something that was a priority for Launchpad.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly will support, well, and Lindsay should answer this, but it will support loss mitigation counseling.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. The second question is, how do we confirm that we are pre-registered for Launchpad as an HCO user?
I'm going to let Lindsay answer that question.
Sure.
Okay.
And I as far as Bruce, you also asked about the I believe, we've helped Launchpad to defray the cost of onboarding and data migration for all of the HCO users that signed up, I think up until the 18th of this month. And I think that there's been a lot of individual outreach and communications. I'm not sure that there's anybody that I've heard of that still hasn't decided to at least complete the onboarding questionnaire so that they'd be eligible for that. But Lindsay, I don't know if you have any more up-to-date information.
Okay, just on that note, if there is, let us know. We will definitely elevate that to Joe at Fannie Mae.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a terrific response, and I think hopeful that this will be a valuable resource that will really help to elevate the value of counseling for lenders and for the industry more broadly. So let me turn it over to Lindsay.
Okay, so I'm going to just do the quick opening comment here so that we can do the quick transition. But thanks, everybody. Thank you, Joe. So we've, as everybody knows, we've been featuring client management systems for the last year, and actually more than that. But we'll try to profile as many as we can as they come along. Launchpad obviously has been a big player in this, is becoming a big player in this market, and is a key piece to this. We have Lindsay Burns today, who's with Housing Partnership Network, who is the initiator of all this, and Launchpad is their product. So we'll spend a fair amount of time on this. So please send your questions as you think of them to Melody through the question box. And Lindsay, do you want to pause, or do you want to have all the questions at the end?
Why don't we, I have a few slides just on some high level information, and then we can pause there, and then I'll keep going into actual demonstration of features, and we can then stop at the end.
Okay, so welcome, Lindsay, and we have a plan, so thanks, and we'll plan to go until 2:30 today on the call. Great, go ahead, Lindsay.
Excellent. Waiting for my...
Oh, and we're doing the transfer right now of the
yes.
slides. And
Lindsay, you have control of the mouse, so you can move forward.
Oh, great. Okay. Let me just share my screen then. Moment. Let's see.
Sorry, Lindsay, this is Melody. You want to share your screen, or do you just want control of the slides? You have control of the slides now.
Oh, I do. Okay. I'm not sure. Oh, brilliant. Am I clicking?
You are clicking.
All right. How do I go backward? Okay, great. This is the starting point. Perfect. I think there's just a tiny delay on my end. My apologies. So thank you, Melody. Thanks, Bruce and Joe and everybody for taking the time to be on this call. I know there's a lot of buzz going on right now, understandably, around the industry, as there has been leading up for the last few years around client management systems or housing counseling. And this is exactly the audience that we really want to be in front of to, help support and answer questions and make sure that, you're going to benefit it from this project, which from the beginning we intended to be a product that was truly designed by counselors for counselors, as we've said. So I just wanted to stop and just by way of introduction, let you know, in case you haven't heard it from us already, that I am here from HPN representing Launchpad because it was our network at HPN many years ago that came together and really decided that we needed to seriously look at our client management systems in terms of the problems we were having with inefficiencies and our reliability of the data. and so many other projects and programs that agencies wanted to be able to take on and were really hamstrung by not having the technology to do so. So we brought together all of those members of ours many years ago, and over the last several years, as we've been out and about, talking to our folks and our peers across the counseling industry, I've been hearing many of the same challenges and wish list items from counseling agencies outside of our network. So we really wanted to take this idea and the initial work that we did with our members to try to define what a client management system could look like to the rest of the industry, and also in hopes that by starting with a platform that has input and was designed with input from counseling agencies from across all manner of sizes and shapes and services, we would be able to develop something that could serve also as a jumping off point or a launch pad, if you will, for future collaboration and opportunities for fee-for-service and working more closely with clients using the latest and greatest technology to do so. So that's kind of the spirit at the heart of Launchpad, and we found a really great partner with Fannie Mae, and not only in the need to provide a reliable replacement and a powerful replacement for home counselor online users, but also to kind of help us explore and scope out this bigger vision that we have, that we think technology can play in helping counseling agencies be more sustainable and grow it and adaptable with the times. So all of those principles are what we hope are reflected in what we've built to date. So we have an application named Launchpad. We built Launchpad on the Salesforce.com platform. So why Salesforce? And if you aren't familiar with Salesforce, and we know some folks have asked the question, what's Launchpad and Salesforce and how are they different? Salesforce is a commercial product that's available to across multiple industries worldwide, probably the most widely used software that allows companies and businesses to gather and collect and manage client data and their relationships with clients that they're providing services or products to. So when we were looking around at technology available to us, we saw a number of agencies had already started exploring the power of Salesforce and how it could be used in our context, and we're pleased to find that through the Salesforce.org Foundation, they are providing significant discounts and benefits for nonprofit and higher education institutions to be able to adapt and use the Salesforce platform for their own purposes without having to pay those costs that are common for other businesses that may be using the platform primarily for the purposes of managing sales and client relationships from that perspective. So when we looked at what Salesforce has to offer, we saw, it was going to get us about 80% of the way to where we wanted to be in terms of the baseline functionality to manage relationships with clients that agencies are, essentially doing on a day-to-day basis, but also that it would allow significant flexibility and customization and the ability to integrate with other applications. Salesforce also has an app exchange where you can download different applications that you might need for business purposes to use in conjunction with your client management software with Launchpad. And it allows kind of that plug and play model that agencies can be able to, that it can work for agencies of different sizes and with different complexity in terms of their services and business lines. So that was really appealing to us, I think, coming out of the space where we felt like most of the folks didn't have any control over their client management system, and every time a new program came online, they wanted to just add a new field. They didn't really have the flexibility to do that without, having to navigate through their CMS provider. And we know, of course, the CMS providers have a lot of work on their hands with having to maintain and keep up to date with technology and with requirements for different programs. So Launchpad if you think about it, the analogy we often use is that Launchpad is like an app and Salesforce is like the phone or the operating system. So if you have a smartphone, when you take it out of the box, you can use certain functionality to make phone calls, text messages. Usually there's some kind of a calendar, calculator, all different kinds of little tools that come embedded with that phone. And there's also, either the Apple Store or the Google Play Store where you can download additional applications for specific purposes like Mint or budgeting apps, music apps, anything you can think of. Launchpad functions much like one of those apps that works off of and in conjunction with the underlying Salesforce platform to provide you with the specific tools and functionality that you need for housing counseling client management. That was where we've spent the time going through and complying with HUD requirements and all of the basic wish list items that our network of agencies and the HCO users we surveyed and others told us were important, and built those in as so that agencies can both leverage the housing counseling functionality, but also the rest of Salesforce once you have that in your hands. There's a lot of questions we've gotten about, the usability of Salesforce, signing up with Salesforce, and hopefully towards the end, I can answer some of those specific questions. But we also know that, this is a major transition for any agency that's going through a client management system transition, and we're working with the agencies that have started working with us to really work out the best and easiest practice to get up and running with this. So we're creating a lot of resources to support that. But essentially, this slide is just showing you that how we design Launchpad to work as part of the Salesforce as an app on the Salesforce platform. We'll help you get set up and apply for the nonprofit discount through salesforce.org. You can then download and install the Launchpad Managed package with support from our customer service team, and work with you to migrate case data from your current CMS. As Joe mentioned, we have been given the timelines facing HCO users in this first half of 2019. We are very focused on supporting those users in particular and working through an automated data migration process so that we can ensure you have everything you need to continue to do your HUD reporting and day-to-day client management. So once we start officially onboarding agencies and migrating data, we'll be able to leverage that process to make it smooth as possible. Once you're set up, once you've got your data in Launchpad and once you're up and running, you will enter your client data into Launchpad and be able to generate reports and use other applications in your day-to-day business. And of course, as I said before, add or customize additional Salesforce applications or features, and get some support from us to help navigate what you think you need for your organization on a case-by-case basis. So I'm going to go through a couple more slides with just the high-level information before I dive into some visuals for everybody. But of course, a key question that is also facing all of you who are looking to transition client management systems is pricing, especially for the HCO users and having had the benefit of a free system for many, many years. We know this is something you need to be able to account for in your budget. You need to be able to do an analysis of all of the options available to you and make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck, of course, when it comes to a CMS. So as we considered pricing for Launchpad, obviously this is an initiative that we are supporting in partnership with our other national intermediary partners, and our goal is really to provide the best and most sophisticated technology that we can to organizations and look at how we can provide that at a reasonable cost. So we have analyzed all the data about the client management system products out there to ensure our pricing is competitive with those in the market. Major props to David Young and Housing Action Illinois for helping to spread the word about all of the options out there, and Launchpad will be included in the latest and greatest guide, so you'll have that information there. But we also wanted to ensure that through this process, we are taking advantage of as many partnerships and relationships with industry stakeholders and our intermediary partners as possible to kind of support and invest in helping agencies acquire these, a powerful CMS product through Launchpad. We know it's really critical for your business, and we think there's a lot of understanding and interest around our partners and how to continue to support that so that we can keep the costs down. But as you can see here, there's two components to the pricing. First is, of course, Salesforce pricing, since we did build the app as a Salesforce-based application. For the nonprofit organizations, you can get 10 licenses to Salesforce for free by completing a Power of Us application, and so that those instructions are included in part of our onboarding process. And if you need more than 10 individual users to have their own login to the system, you can also get a deep discount on the additional licenses for each user over 10. So then in order to charge just for Launchpad, for managing the application, the cost to Launchpad to upgrade and maintain and enhance it over time and make sure that it's meeting all of your needs and responsive to all of our users' needs. We've included an onboarding cost. Obviously, that's what would be required for agencies to actually bring their data into Launchpad and get set up with Launchpad, as well as a Launchpad subscription. I should say we have the pricing here is billed monthly. That comes out to about a little over $1,200 a year for the first 5 users, and an additional charge per user after that for us to be able to set up and maintain the user privileges and the like for Launchpad. So of course there is a cost, and we think that and what we hope folks will find is that it's a cost we can easily justify by the level of investment we're making and the value that we're providing with Launchpad. Of course, as Joe mentioned earlier, and Bruce as well, we have, through our partnership with Fannie Mae and our eagerness to bring the HCO users on board, we are waiving any onboarding or data migration cost for those agencies that have completed our onboarding survey. I know there was a question earlier about how if you're on the list. We sent out a communication last Monday, I believe, to everybody that had responded to our onboarding survey. So if you are still unsure about that, please, you'll see our contact information at the end. You can reach out to us. But just by virtue of completing that survey, we have you on our list, and you should be looking out for some additional communications early in the middle of next week. So what do you get for all of the cost and all of the effort that it takes to switch client management systems when you're thinking about switching to Launchpad? Well, we've kind of broken down the various needs that we've heard from counseling agencies into training, data migration, and onboarding support. So we are absolutely set up to support that whole process for organizations, teaching folks how to get access to Salesforce, go through some trainings on Salesforce for those that are interested, but also specifically Launchpad training and documentation on use of the system. We are also working with a number of our national intermediary partners on some plans to roll out some additional training offerings as we ramp up further to support the wider counseling industry. Right now, we're providing those training resources, but it's something that we're going to be making available, and also investing in some tools like quick videos and resources to help agencies walk through specific functionality in the system. So there's a lot coming out on that front, and of course, for the data migration and onboarding, that includes specific guidance on getting your data from your current CMS to your new CMS with Launchpad, and helping you set up your your settings with Launchpad, so you know different users might have different profiles, and you might have specific small customizations that we can provide. So we're thrilled that we have onboarded our director of customer service for Launchpad, Burley Anderson. He's coming to us with a ton of experience in technology and in customer service, but also in housing counseling, and over the last 2 years working with the Home Free Network. And we're really optimistic about being able to help agencies not just understand the technology of the system, but make sure that it's you are understanding it in the context that it meets your business needs. So this slide, I guess we got a little fuzzy on this slide, and this is the last slide I'll cover before I start to dive into screenshots, because I know, Bruce, you wanted to do a more in-depth presentation. But the dates are a little funky on here. You can't quite see in my timeline here, but we wanted to give you, of course, a sense of what the process is right now for the Launchpad broad release to counseling agencies. As I said, we are really focused right now on supporting HCO users that are ramping up to migrate. We know there's a lot of worry about the timeline and being able to get your data moved, and we know you've also been wanting to hear from us more and hear back from us and get an update on the timing. So that's all stuff that we're working on right now. But as part of that, we're also just finalizing the data migration process for HCO users, and we will be starting to queue up agencies for onboarding so that we have that timeline in mind for the HCO retirement. We will be over the next several months continuing to onboard those HCO users, helping them with the process of getting set up with Salesforce and execute a subscription agreement in a few waves, so that we can have that all completed by the end of May, and expect that as early as June we would be looking toward other agencies who are using other client management systems as their primary CMS, who want to switch to Launchpad, and supporting the migration for those agencies. So a lot of that just entails getting our hands on some of the data from those other client management systems, so we can be prepared to map that data to Launchpad and try to ensure a smooth transition for other agencies where we don't necessarily have the same relationship we do with Fannie Mae for HCO. So the other piece that you don't see on this particular timeline, this is just the release timeline, but that I definitely wanted to bring up on this call is, we have a lengthy roadmap in front of us. From the beginning, we came together with a bunch of organizations who wanted to see all kinds of different functionality built out, specifically things like a customer-facing portal, the ability to exchange data with clients directly, the ability to integrate with applications like Fannie Mae's Desktop Underwriter, as Joe mentioned, and other tools that are commonly used throughout the industry, and also intermediary functionality. We ourselves, being an intermediary, really want to be able to leverage a tool like this to have better access and ability to share and exchange data and information with our networks. So those are just a few of the major highlight items on our roadmap. But what we're also doing as part of our commitment to be by counselors for counselors is through the whole process up to this point, through user acceptance testing and through the demos that we've been doing, and feedback we've been getting from agencies, we are compiling all of those features that they're looking for in our roadmap, and we'll be have a process going forward to continue to take those suggestions and evaluate them for future releases in functionality. So that's where I thought I should pause maybe for some questions before I dive into some
good.
demoing.
That's good. Sounds good. Let me just throw out one quick one. So is Launchpad up and running now? Are there users using it and testing it out, or is it still in the design and polish phase?
It is Through the design and polish phase, it's developed. We are in the process of onboarding a handful of pilot organizations that are HCO users who are in various stages right now. So a few are set up with Salesforce, a few are using a Launchpad sandbox tool to be able to test out the functionality and start training on it as we prepare to migrate their data. So there are organizations that are starting to use it. We started with this small pilot grouping to make sure we've worked out any major kinks before we release to the broader industry.
And just so I'm clear, what you were saying was HCO users are the only ones that can onboard now, and you won't take other agencies until June. Is that correct to say?
That is correct. Yes, Bruce. I think we're simultaneously working on making some connections and reaching out through our intermediary partners to engage with the broader counseling CMS users to offer up Launchpad, and we have a number of organizations who are intending to switch once it becomes possible, but due to the timeline and the crunch for HCO users, we thought it best just to guarantee that we focus on those groups before we try to onboard a larger audience.
Okay, so Melody.
Hey, Bruce, I'm just trying to be mindful of time. We have a flood of questions coming in. I think we should possibly hold the questions off until the end of that Lindsay's presentation, so we can let her get through her slides.
Okay. So Lindsay, let's do
right.
that, and then we'll see what isn't answered at that point.
Yes, and we're happy to. We're working on some additional FAQ updates to our website, and of course, can field any questions through you, Bruce. I'm obviously, I don't see getting through all of the slides today, but I'm going to hit on some high-level functionality, and hopefully you all have a copy of the presentation, so you'll be able to see firsthand, get a sense of the look and feel of the system, and some images to familiarize with it. But what I wanted
just let me answer one quick question, which I'm sure will be flooding in. So the PowerPoint went out on the listserv an hour before the presentation, so everybody should have it in their inbox.
Perfect. Thanks, Bruce. So what I'm displaying here, and what I think is critical before going into Launchpad, and what we've learned from helping agencies migrate from HCO and looking at the differences between Launchpad and a number of the other CMS products out there, is that because we designed Launchpad as an app on the Salesforce platform, it functions as a client relationship management application and not just a client management system. So what does that actually mean? Essentially what it means is that all of the information you gather and collect about the individual clients you're working with and the cases and the services that you're providing to them all funnels under the primary record or collection object of the client's account, and helps us be able to have the flexibility to enter information only once for a specific household, carry that information through to the individual clients that are part of that household and their cases and their counseling activities, and also track any number of case clients and education relationships pertaining to a household. So this graphic shows you at the top we have the client accounts. We also have created functionality for you to track organizational relationships. So if there are community partners, banks, other service providers that you commonly work with, and you want to just be able to track their, track those relationships, you can create an account for those organizations as well as the households that you're working with. And the household rolls up all of the data from the individual clients you enter who are members of that household. And then under those client records, individual client records, you can have any number of client cases. You can see on the left, John Smith has a client case for pre-purchase and a client case for non-delinquency post-purchase. Joan Smith just has a workshop that she's attended. Client 3, Bob Smith, has a client case for foreclosure counseling as well as a workshop that he's attended. And underneath those client cases, you're able to track all of your individual counseling activities working on those cases. So hopefully it'll become a little bit more clear as I scan through the the screenshots, but this is something that we know was a major difference for agencies transitioning from HCO, especially because in the HCO system, the data model, all of the information you collect is entered under a client case, and you can only ever have, that one client case open at a time, and anybody who's related to that client case cannot be separated out from the client case itself. So one of the true benefits of this data model is that it does give you that flexibility to have all of these different relationships. You can report out on client level data, you can report out on account level data, you can report out on all of the counseling activities, all of the client cases, all of the workshops, any of these objects where you're collecting data, represented by these different shapes on here, information can be reported out on this, it can be exported, reported based on these different collection objects. All right, so the next, my screen's freezing. Okay, so the next slide gives you a glimpse into what it looks like in Launchpad to create an account, and what the screen looks like when you log in. As you can see across the top, there are tabs for different areas where different objects where you're collecting information about your services and your clients. And each of these tabs functions much in the same way, like you'll see, where you can click to drop down from the little arrow from each of these tabs and access. You'll immediately see the pop-up to add a new account. You can also access your recent records, and you can also create your own lists to view specific information filtered in a specific way for the accounts that you're working with. So right here we have, for example, you can create a list for new this week. You would see all of the new accounts you created this week, new last week, etc. And so this list is of all the household accounts that as a user I'm able to see when I log into the system. As I sketch forward, if you click on create a new account, this is where you can see you have the option to select from a household record or a organization record. So if you want to collect information about that partner organization, their contact information, you'll get a much more streamlined data entry screen than you would for a household, obviously, because you won't be collecting the same information, but you can collect it in the same way. So this screen shows you what it looks like to capture that data entry information for a new household account. We are flagging on here a few items. So of course, there are some starred items, rural area status, for example. Any item in here that's starred as a required field. We did try to minimize the number of fields as much as possible that were required, because we know different agencies have different ways of collecting their data and tracking their data. So at the point in time when you might be entering a household record into your system, you might not know whether or not, you might not know their full contact record information. But as long as you have some of those key data points that are required for HUD reporting purposes, you can enter in that household record. So this screen, I know it's probably a little hard to see, but it shows you what the screen looks like for an existing account. So we have the Stark household account. On the top, you can see just a quick snapshot of the number in the household, the English proficiency. So if anybody is just going through the system and looking to see information about households, they have kind of that high-level view. There's also a number of buttons up on the top right for some quick actions that you may want to take, including the ability to add a note, delete this household, change the record type. The household information, as you can see here, we're tracking the address, all of those fields that I showed that you enter for a new household, including the HUD required demographics and the household financials. So Launchpad for household financials, there's two things that Launchpad is doing for you. First, it's taking financial information that you've entered for each individual member of the household in these, as you can see over here, the contacts that are part of this household. And it's rolling it up to show you the aggregate financials for all members in that household that have been identified as contributors to the household financials. It is also automatically calculating the AMI level in the percentage of AMI based on that total household, the annual household income, and the address that you've entered for that household. So you can see here there's a little marker that says AMI validated. There are some instances where a zip code may give you more than one option for AMI, and the system is actually going to give you a quick prompt to choose the right option. At the bottom, it's a little bit cut off here, but you can see every record, every household record has this system information where you can see last modified by and created by. So we also are building in a lot of ways to track changes and ensure the integrity of the data for important fields so that you'll know if you come and look at a record, if somebody's recently changed this household's number in household or any of these fields, you would be able to see history for that. The household record, oops, going back really quickly, also has, as I said, from the household record, you can access the contacts, the members of that household directly, and any cases that any members of that household are currently involved in. The contacts you can also jump directly into to go to see their information, or the drawing places you can click directly into, but this allows you to get a full picture of all of the various relationships and services that are being provided associated with this one household. This next screen, as you can see, it looks very similar to the earlier one where I showed you the recently viewed accounts. Each of these accounts, each of these line items or lines represents a different contact that you've entered into the system. So just like you can have a household account or an organization account, you can also have a client contact or a non-client contact. So if you're tracking information about different people who work at a local organization that you partner with, that's all categorized separately. We also have built in an option for new contact for a prospect. So some agencies express that they get a lot of calls from people who are just interested in counseling, and they never actually necessarily come through the door and give them enough information to really enter in a client or open a new case. So that's just an option that's available. So if somebody comes in and you want to create a prospect, you can eventually, if they do come in for counseling, you can convert their record to a client record and fill in any of the information that you haven't already collected to kind of minimize that data entry. So this screen shows you a contact record. So this is contact information for Ned Stark, who's a member of the Stark household, as you can see here under the account name. Any of these links that are highlighted in blue, you can hover over to get a little bit more information. They also function as links within the system, as you can see. So here we're collecting any information that's specific to a client contact. So distinct from information you might collect at the household level that would be common to all members of a household, or for HUD reporting purposes, the identified head of household. We are also tracking the client details specific to the individuals in that household. So you can see here, oops, I skip back over. When you first look at the contact record, you can see the detail information about this contact, all of the basic information, when to call, best time to contact, preferred language. We also have other preferred language. And we also see that there's another tab here for related items. And if you quickly toggle over to the related items tab, you can see again all of the information that's being captured in the system that is anyway related to this contact. So if this contact, I left these all blank so you could see the full list in my screenshots. It wasn't too expanded, but you can see client cases, activities, workshop rosters, certificates from workshops, financial snapshots, credit reports, properties, and mortgage data. So any information that you're gathering, as well as files and funding sources that have been used related to this contact, can all be found in one place again. So you can navigate from many different ways. I should point out, one of the features that we've created as well that you collect and track at the contact level is the credit report functionality. So we are currently leveraging the credit reporting module available through Desktop Underwriter that allows us to pull in credit report data from any of the major credit report agencies that you may be working with that are currently available in HCO. So as long as you have credentials with one of those credit reporting agencies, you can pull in a tri-merge, any combination of two bureaus or a single bureau credit report into Launchpad. You'll have that raw data tracked. Let's see if I can, oh, sorry, I didn't include the credit report screenshot. You'll have the raw data that comes in from that credit report with all of the liabilities, all of the account information, credit score, but you also can generate a printable PDF credit report to share with a client that mirrors any standard credit report. So that's something that was pretty critical for agencies and allows a lot of that flexibility because we have that raw data. You can actually run reports and look at credit scores over time. So if you run a credit report for an individual client contact multiple times over the course of a period of time, you would be able to easily report out and see any changes in their credit score. We've also captured financial snapshot information. Let's see, here we go, at the contact level. And again, this is a screen showing you all of the different information that's captured. And the financial snapshot really, again, it allows us to track financial information for a contact that can then either be rolled up to a household or rolled down and carried through to a case so that you don't have to enter that information in multiple places, multiple times. If you have major changes in the client's financial situation, you can generate a new financial snapshot and it'll automatically identify any of the previous financial snapshots as historical. And you can also pull this information, as I said, directly into a budget if you're working on a specific case with that client. So again, you don't have to re-enter, and you can also compare, okay, this is the information we gathered at the time of intake about your income, expenses, liabilities, assets, employment, and here's the information that we're putting in now for budget purposes, and actually see the variance. So I believe I have a screenshot of that a little bit later on as well. I'm conscious of time, so I think what I can do is go through the next couple slides and then I'll pause again. And of course, you all have the screenshots. There's some additional functionality you'll see in those screenshots, but through this, I'll be able to cover the basic components of the CMS. So client cases, again, you're seeing a screen that looks much like the list of accounts and list of contacts. And again, you can access client cases. You can create a new one by doing that drop down or creating a new case from within this recently viewed list. This gives you a list of all of the client cases you have access to as a user in the system based on your privileges. And you can also, I forgot to mention earlier, from this global search bar at the top of the screen, you can type in literally any term that is found within the system in any of these records, and you can pull up that information. And it will give you a list of the different records that match that information. So it gives you an easy way to search and navigate through your list of client cases and contacts and accounts as well. The client case are designed. We built in the required HUD reporting services for the 9902. Each of these represents the ability to track a client case record for 902 reporting purposes. We also built in a couple other options, including financial capability and an other as a placeholder. So any agency, if you have another service type that you're providing or that you want to track in Launchpad, but keep it separate from your HUD reported services, you would be able to use the same case functionality to create a new case for that purpose. And see, and and be able to have a starting point or a template essentially to work off of without having to build your own client case from scratch. So that's some flexibility, again, counseling agencies really wanted to be able to have for different programs that they might be offering, or for times when they may be working outside of the realm of HUD housing counseling services, to still be able to see all of the work that their counselors and the folks using the system are doing. This screen shows you what the details collected on a client case look like. Again, similar to the account record, you have the details of the client case as well as related information associated with this client case. You can see the record type. You also have a subtype that you can identify. So if you like to group your clients according to a specific workflow, you can do so on your own, and based on what your own processes are. The case details also include the basic information about intake and the purpose of the case, but also case management information about the number of activities reported and the funding sources identified, as well as a client checklist. I believe I included that in here. There's a delay on my end in switching the slides, where you can actually capture and check off boxes to indicate that you've collected all of the primary required forms for your clients, and whether or not those have been uploaded to the record. And that information, because it's specific to a client, you capture that when you enter in the client's information, and it automatically displays on the client's case so that you don't have to constantly re-enter and recollect those forms if it's not necessary. Case financial information is the same. It's pulling in from the financial snapshot and can be carried down through the budget. So you can also see on the right side here, we've got a number of features. You have the ability to email a client directly from the system over here on the right-hand side, and keep a record of that email having been sent. And over here, you can capture all of your various counseling activities and any kind of narrative notes that you might want to make related to this client case. Files also, there's significant storage available to upload PDF files to a client record. You can drag and drop or simply upload the files from your system and capture those at the client level, the case level, or the account level, wherever that information is needed to be captured. The individual counseling activity lives underneath the case, so that as you're working with clients and having counseling sessions or tracking all of your various counseling engagements with those clients, you can capture this information here. It'll automatically populate the funding source and the service type as you enter in the basic information to create this new counseling activity. And there's a quick button to be able to enter those on the fly. This gives you a little bit more detail of what you can collect as part of tracking your counseling activities. So we have the narrative information, as well as schedule and attendance information, funding and impacts. So within the counseling activities, you can capture any number of case impacts, and you can also capture that information at the case level as well. So you don't have to create a counseling activity every time you want to track an impact. So we also have the pre-purchase. One of the other features that lives underneath the case is the ability to create action plans and checklists to capture, to kind of standardize how you capture information, or at least just to track it electronically as you're working through counseling with your clients. So this is an example of what a pre-purchase action plan might look like. You can actually capture that. You can create one of these from scratch, so where you would put in the purpose of the plan, the type, the narrative, and add individual action items. You can also use action plan templates to create those same templates that you can use across all of your cases in the system for specific service types. That will also allow you to generate a printable action plan that you can hand to your client. You can mark up, oops, I scrolled too fast, and you can track through within this action plan their progress on these individual action items, whether or not they're counselor action items or client action items. And the same functionality can be used again as sort of a checklist form. So if there's specific documentation for a case you need to collect, or for a specific funder that you want to make sure you're tracking, you can quickly generate an action or a action plan checklist template to capture all of that information. This is going to show you quickly just, it's a little hard to see on the screen, but another example of information that we're able to generate out of Launchpad. So this gives you a budget worksheet. We reviewed a number of different budget worksheets that agencies shared with us and that we saw in HCO and other systems to try to come up with something that would be usable but also customer friendly for exporting purposes. So once you've entered in budget information, you're actually able to capture not only the actual amounts, the budget amounts, and the variance between actual and budgeted amounts to help facilitate your budget tracking in your work with your clients. There's a number of different features like this. Like I said, you can export an action plan to a PDF to be able to provide to the client. You can also automatically generate workshop certificates for attendees of a workshop, and you can generate a credit report in printed form to share with your clients. And with a lot of the tools available in Salesforce, you can also stretch those tools to be able to generate even more formatted templates and forms from the data within your CMS, within Launchpad. I feel like that's maybe a good place to pause, and I know I've talked like 9 miles an hour, so, or 90 miles an hour, so Bruce, I just want to make sure I'm conscious of the time.
But thank you so much, Lindsay, and we have a few questions. I'm just going to ask one quick one that I saw on the list, which is, will groups be able to try out Launchpad before they commit to actually doing it?
It's a great question. We're working on setting that up now. So we're setting up a kind of a test environment and a process to be able to, give credentials to an organization to do, to be able to log in and see it for yourself. So I don't have a specific date for when we'll have that available, but we are working on that.
And so we're probably going to go past 2:30 a little bit because we have a bunch of questions, but not go as far as all the way to 3. So if you can hang on. So Melody, what questions have you got?
Sure. So is Launchpad linked with Hope Loan Portal, or can counselors send loss mitigation applications directly to servicers?
Another great question. So we have been having conversations with Hope Loan Portal to design out for a version 2 or later functionality to be able to integrate with Hope Loan Portal. So we've had really good conversations with Mark Cole so far, and that's something that we expect to that is also on our roadmap that I didn't mention that we need to we'll be working on over the course of the later half of this year.
Okay, and another question came in asking roughly the same question regarding CoreLogic.
Oh, sure. CoreLogic, as a credit reporting provider, if you have an agreement with CoreLogic to pull your credit report data, within Launchpad, you would be able to enter in your credentials with CoreLogic and pull those credit reports through Launchpad as a system. Launchpad's really acting as kind of the mechanism or the intermediary to pull in that data. And pretty much as long as you have credentials with a credit reporting agency that you would normally use to pull credit reports, you'll be able to do that in Launchpad.
And we'll be able to get the NHRC credit report discount on the Credco relationship. The pricing is whatever the pricing is. It's not that you get involved with the pricing.
That's right.
Right? Okay.
Exactly. So these would be independently brokered, agreements. So if NHRC offers that discount, we'll you'll be able to still get the benefit of that same discount. We're just providing the mechanism to pull in the data.
Okay, great. Are folks able to import clients from the Civi CRM?
Oh, Civic CRM, I think. Yeah, right.
Yes.
That's a great question. So we are not necessarily, we don't have a specific import process developed specifically for any other CMS besides HCO, but chances are, because of the way Salesforce works, as long as we can get the data from your current CMS in a CSV format and actually map the data that's coming out of your existing CMS to the data as it's being captured in Launchpad, Salesforce allows you to do mass data uploads of CSV files to create new records within Launchpad. So we think that's the way it's going to work for most folks. But of course, we are working on that particular process for HCO users to try to streamline that experience so you don't have to do the mapping yourself, and you don't have to necessarily download your data, then upload it to Launchpad. But that is how we expect it would work for Civic CRM or any other CMSs that are out there.
So you
currently.
Don't have the mapping for CounselorMax?
We don't have it yet, no. And that's partly another reason why we're working on, why I've said, up until probably through June, we won't necessarily be onboarding any agencies beyond HCO users. We do have we are working on the process of mapping to CounselorMax, but of course, we have to be able to work with them and get a full picture of, what information can we get out of your system, what format is going to be in, is it complete, and how can we actually translate that into data that we can import to Launchpad. So that process is something we'll be, I think, investing some time in and trying to create better templates that can be used and reused for agencies coming from some of the larger CMS providers like CounselorMax who want to transition to Launchpad.
Great. I think this question applied to a few people, so I'll try to consolidate it. Can you talk about the Launchpad functions related to other services commonly provided by agencies, such as IDAs, financial coaching, credit counseling, and down payment assistance?
That's a great question. So one of the things that we decided deliberately to do, if I can skip back to it, with Launchpad, especially in this first version that we're rolling out, given the priorities and the needs of the counseling agencies coming from HCO and the folks that we were working with initially, was to kind of look at this as, from the start as our minimally viable product to be able to track housing counseling data and report to HUD via HCS, which we are approved to do and able to do within Launchpad. What we have done with our thinking and our approach to building Launchpad is to create the ability for agencies to track those other services that you may be providing commonly within your organization, like financial coaching, IDA, credit counseling, and the like. So right now, within Launchpad, without having to do anything out of the box, you can create a financial capability case or other case using the same data and all the information you would collect for any other client case that we've designed in Launchpad. But we can also work with you to create your own type of client case for a specific purpose that you want to use it for. So that's one way that we're addressing that question. Another way is, and I think this is just to put it out there to folks, we are having conversations with other CMS providers, as we said, especially those who are more active in the credit counseling space, about different ways that we could potentially work together, leverage some tools, and not have to recreate the wheel, but also allow agencies that are providing both types of services to ideally work within one system or streamline the process of having information in multiple systems. We know credit counseling, debt management counseling are different than housing counseling. So we want to make sure we don't assume that we are able to track all of that information the same way, and work with our partners to help identify how the best way to do that.
Cool. Will Launchpad be able to populate the HUD grant activity column in 99 on the 9900? They said that HCO can only populate to all activities, which has resulted in manual entry for many subgrantees.
Oh, yes. Tonight, very painfully familiar with the process. Yes, Launchpad, through our integration with HDS, we are ARM 5 compliant, which means all of the data that's required to be submitted to HCS to populate the records is captured here and can be submitted electronically.
Okay. Let me see. In the state of Delaware, this is a bit of a long one, but I think it's relevant to those listening. In the state of Delaware, paying $1,260 a year for one staff counselor is not cost effective. How do you suggest those interested in Launchpad use it when they're limited funding?
I hear that, sir. So there's a few thoughts, and something that as we're talking to more agencies, we're working on exploring, and as we're talking to intermediaries as well, we are actively exploring to try to resolve that challenge for smaller organizations. I think, first and foremost, as I said, we really looked closely at the pricing that's available for a number of the CMS products out there, and our own business model for how we're going to actually provide quality customer support and ongoing enhancements of the platform, and in order to come up with the pricing that we felt was manageable and affordable, both crossing both of those check boxes. So I think that's just important for me to reiterate. But of course, yes, it is, if you only have one counselor, it is a chunk of change that you have to be able to budget for. So there's a couple of thoughts we have there. As we're gathering data and information about agencies with the need for fewer licenses and talking to intermediaries, there is a potential implementation of Launchpad that would allow multiple agencies to share an instance of Launchpad, or to connect through a relationship with, their state HFA or an intermediary. We have to design exactly what that looks like, because that's something we have to plan for. And obviously, if you have multiple agencies on the same platform, and rather than multiple individual users, you have to have much more stringent permissions and roles in place to be able to separate out their data and make sure that they're benefiting from the same features of the system, but also separated from any other agency's data. So I hear you. I think my short answer is I hear you. We are looking at that, and we think over the course of 2019, we are going to be trying to identify the specific mode to be able to support that type of user.
Okay. I think I'm going to take one or two more questions. Can Launchpad be used to input CDBG landlord, tenant, and discrimination cases and run monthly reports for funding sources?
Great question. The short answer is yes. The longer answer is with some customization. So as I was saying before about the other service types, as long as you know what specific data needs to be collected to track that service, all of that information can be entered into Launchpad, in the context of a case, and can be tracked, and reports can be generated off of those. So again, we didn't necessarily build that for you, but it can be done relatively easily with relatively minimal customization. That's something that we can help agencies create.
Okay. The last question here. For organizations that have more than one branch, will each branch have to individually sign up, or can it be used across multiple branches in a single organization?
That absolutely just depends on how you manage, how your relationship works with your branch organizations. So as long as there's no reason why you would necessarily want to separate out data that may be entered at one branch from another branch, for them not, if you need to be able to separate the branches and in the data that they're entering and the data that they're able to view, you can add, you can get one, you can acquire Launchpad once and have individuals from multiple branches log in. Of course, it does limit a little bit, some of the, customization that you can do, because it's assuming, everything that you put in is going to be shared across all branches. That could be a benefit for you if that's how your branches operate. But if you do have branches where they're all doing things a little bit differently, you want to be able to track, some specific information separately, or prevent individuals from other branches from being able to see the information that they're entering, then that's something that we would have to have a conversation about and better understand, exactly what your limits are and your needs are.
Great. So, Lindsay, thank you so much. You have to now hand the screen back over to us so that we could keep rolling.
Happily. Thank you, Bruce. And again, I'm happy to do, we are trying to get more live demos on the calendar as we eased into the month of January. So happy to provide any other questions and context.
Okay. All right. So really quickly, we'll have just a couple more quick things, and one a very cool one. So Ellie, I want to line you up. We've got an NHRC Facebook page. What's that all about, Ellie?
Hi, everybody. So as many of you know, we have been doing a lot of work around social media related to our events that are being sponsored by Deutsche Bank. And so we thought that we should start our own Facebook page. So you can find us by searching the National Housing Resource Center in Facebook, and you can tag us with @National Housing Resource Center as it's shown on the page here. So we hope that you'll like us and that you'll follow us so that you can hear about our upcoming events, that you can see information about housing policies that are important to the industry, and see what Melody, Bruce, and I are up to. And then, really the whole idea is for us to be able to use our experiences with social media for our own organization, as well as for the benefit of highlighting policies and the work of housing counseling agencies, and our advertising using Facebook for the events, that we can share that with all of you, and that it helps to provide some useful tools for your social media efforts. So like us and follow us.
We really, really want you to like us. So good. Okay, so let's move on quickly to just a quick reminder about NHRC membership. We've already had a new member, two new members come in this in 2019 already. So thank you so much. It's been great. This is obviously very helpful. And there is the credit report discount that's an advantage, but we hope you're really joining because you want to support the work, and we're pretty thrilled about being out in the field and finding out how many organizations are so deeply involved with our work. And these last two calls have been a good indication, helpful to us that these are indicators that we're working on things you care about. There will be plenty more we're planning for this year, and really rely heavily on your support to do this. So thanks so much on this. And then the next call we're going to have will be February 7th, and we're going to have a client management system that's done by the Alliance Credit Counseling organization, and it's called a Counseling Navigator. It's been around for a while, actually, and it's not as well known as some of the others, but I wanted to feature that. We will probably also have a couple other presentations, one of which will be around the fair housing and expanding fair housing to include veterans and others. It's an opportunity, we think, that has gotten some Republican as well as Democratic support, and we're going to hear from some of the groups that are deeply involved in this. It's interesting that in a world where there's a lot of pressure on fair housing issues, that there's some opportunity to expand fair housing for some people. So that's all the good news. We'll look to talk to you then, and we'll get some materials out to you this afternoon. Look out for the survey, because we want to get a really fast snapshot of what's happening in the field. You'll be very, very helpful to this. And look out for, and certainly if you're in an area that the THUD subcommittee members are, please reach out to Melody. Thanks so much. Good call, everybody. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Bye.